Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Reel Debaters production. I'm your host, Micheal Petrow. Thank you for tuning in. This is one of the last episodes of 2020. I'm doing this on December 30th, and today's episode is with a friend of the show, generously educational and lovely human being, Brad Crawford, cinematographer, Steadicam operator, and co-creator of Stratus Studios. BJ Varro did an episode. His partner did an episode with us. I can't remember the episode number. I should. We don't have that many, but he did one all about stunt work. So we've got cinematography from Brad today. We've had stunt work from BJ Varro. In the future, they're going to come on the show and talk about their new movie, The Return, that they did. And we'll get the two of them together. We will meld their minds, and it will be crazy movie talk. Anyway, so that's who's on the show, Brad Crawford. ReelDebaters.ca for anybody listening for the first time. And you want to carry us into the new year, go to the ReelDebaters.ca. That's REEL Debaters.ca. The website has the blog, has the merch stand, has cast bios. It's got everything. Just one-stop shop. So go there. At Reel Debaters, that's all of our social media. Everything again, REEL. Thank you to everybody who's listened to us throughout the entire year. I'll get better at these thank yous and paying attention to this in the new year. I don't know how much you give a fuck, but I give a fuck because you're listening. So, thank you specifically to our hometown, Winnipeg, Navarro, Manitoba. Shout out to you. Little tick there from you. Thanks for the tick. Toronto, Canada, Brooklyn, New York. Two places that all of a sudden you guys are listening to the show, so thank you for that as well, too. And thank you to everybody who always listens to the show. I want to kind of spread the love as much as possible because I don't know. This is where I start to ramble. Moving back onto the track. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. Hope you guys had a safe one. Fuck 2020. 2021's around the corner. That's about as emotional as I'm going to get about that. Let's just start new and fresh. TV's now welcomed on the show. If you've missed a couple episodes, just to subscribe. You never miss anything. But we are now inviting TV characters into the mix to argue because content is content. Big screen, little screen, it doesn't matter. We accept it all. Also, a YouTube channel is being worked on right now. We did our first test. Need a lot of work, so that's going to be coming later in the year. We'll let everybody know about that. Shorter, more condensed versions. If you don't like the long form, what we do here, we're going to offer like a quick, silly 10, 15-minute form of it, like your Reel Debaters light, if you will. Let's see. We got the website. Happy holidays. Thank you again, guys. Seriously, thank you so much. I know I'm the only one who talks here all the time, but the entire cast appreciates it as much as I do. So I won't imitate them because that's just not a place I want to go and put you through. A couple more episodes this year, and we're done. So as I've said before, and I will say again, I will cue the reel, and you enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Reel Debaters production. That's the new intro, Brad.
Glad to be here.
I had caught the Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters. Well, the Foo Fighters did a show a week ago in the Roxy, a week or two ago at the Roxy in LA. Nobody was allowed to be there, and obviously for obvious reasons. But the point of my story is that he didn't know that they had already started the concert, and he was like, "Oh, just let me know when I can start, introducing the band." And then he's like, "Oh, we're taping. Okay, well, let me just pretend like
oh wait, so
what
this
I was
is
gonna
on.
do." Yeah, it's on, right? So it's like, and it's pay-per-view, so it's live. So he turns around and he's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Foo Fighters." So
He introduces himself.
he introduces himself.
Classic.
So maybe it'll stick for a couple episodes, maybe it won't. First of all, thank you for doing this again. You are a saint for saying to have the same conversation inside of a month with me.
Hey man, it's too bad we can't be in person again.
I know. Yeah, no, that was what I'm alluding to, everybody, is that we did this interview about a month ago. Yeah, a month ago. and a certain software, certain DAW, did not want to cooperate, and
Duh.
it took DAW. It didn't want to cooperate, and it took half of Brad's episode, stored it in the cloud, and then somehow stored half of it on the computer. And when I tried to marry the two, it didn't work, and it ended up deleting Brad's episode, which I might say is probably my favorite interview so far. I know
This
you're
is when you
supposed to
cue the soundboard.
Yeah. That's totally it. Hey, as you say, they can fix it in post, right?
Yeah, I mean the technology's there. I think you can just get some other actor to like say my lines at this point. I don't know.
I don't want to admit that software exists. It's so scary. Like my Aaron Dole buddy, guy who's the early inception of the show, sent me a picture of him as the Spice Girls. Like he was just rotating through, and they morphed his face, and I was like, that's so awkward to look at.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Deep fakes are real, and they're here, but it's
I don't know if I can live in a world with deep fakes. Deep fakes are scary.
agreed.
Can you tell? Can you tell at all? Like through your eye, can you see a deep fake?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's
Really?
there. I mean, the technology's not there yet. It's all uncanny valley garbage, but it's only going to get better.
Yeah, that's the scary thing. It only has one way to go, and that's up. That's more accurate. That's more. That's
Yeah.
more pixels.
Yeah, like soon it'll just be like Star Wars General Tarkin, crap. which still I don't like. I'm not a fan of, but like, it's pretty good. Some of it's pretty good.
It's good enough.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you for doing round 2 of this. Thank you for getting this on paper, because I really liked what we talked about. We had a good time. We had a lot of laughs, and it was when we could do it in person. So
Yeah, we'll just channel all that energy.
Yeah, exactly. I still feel my fingertips are still vibrating from it. So, or maybe I think it's the massage I just came out of. I just got fixed, and was at Academy Massage.
Oh yeah, which I also frequent myself.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
My man Dav over at Academy Massage.
I had Ruhai tonight, and she was like, "Have you ever had your pecs massaged?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, you're about to snap. And I had an issue in my shoulder that is gone. So
I'm a firm believer in massage therapy. Absolutely.
It really is a blessing to have. I mean, to be one of the lucky people who has insurance, who gets massage on their insurance. Like, that's a pretty great thing.
Thank you, my wife.
Yeah. That's what Sean says about me.
Yeah.
Love being that on the
on the Blue Cross. Yeah.
Totally works. So the point of for anybody listening, the first time we had Brad on was to talk cinematography, to talk about camera work, to talk about why things look the way they look and how they're shot, and his story. And besides being a fan of this guy, because I've known of him for a very long time, and his partner at Strata Studios is an old friend of mine, BJ Varro, who we've had on the show before. We had BJ on, we had Brad on, and we wanted to talk about Brad's story, and then we fucking MacBooks and the cloud and Audacity, not the audacity of the cloud, but Audacity of the DAW. Fuck you, Audacity. And no, I don't mean that, but like, you know what I mean. So I don't want to get shit for somebody.
Yeah. And you're not sponsored anymore.
Yeah, right. I'm just angry because it's probably the MacBook. It's not Audacity. I'm taking my feelings out on the wrong person. So anyways, let's start, as James Lipton says. Let's begin at the beginning. How did Brad Crawford get into film?
Oh man, yeah. So I mean, I guess it all started like university era. I mean, I've always been interested in photography, but around my university days, I was in fine arts at the U of M, and that's where like my focus kind of shifted more towards photography and graphic design, that type of stuff, which was kind of, I mean, at the time there wasn't like a great film school in Winnipeg. I feel like the real University of Winnipeg film program hadn't. I don't think it was available at the time at all, and the film studies at the U of M was very like theoretical. It wasn't very practical. So there's not a lot of like hands-on learning in Winnipeg at the time, from my memory. I mean, I could be wrong, but but anyway, I mean, I got really interested in photography, and then I graduated with a fine arts degree, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, doesn't mean a whole lot career wise. So, like
I
many
mean,
people
it's a piece
do.
of paper.
Yeah, I mean, I got the paper, and that got me a ticket to Japan. So, I mean, I applied for a job to teach English out there because you needed a degree. They don't specify what kind of degree, thankfully. So, I got my
Found that loophole, did you?
yeah, I got my fine arts degree, and flew off to Japan to go teach English. And while I was out there, I met a few people that were filmmakers, and I originally had planned to check out Vancouver Film School when I got back to Canada. I wanted to like study computer animation or those types of, I've always been like a bit of a computer nerd myself, so uh, I was going to take a deep dive in that kind of path. But then in researching and kind of self-teaching, you know, exploring computer animation, I realized that like as a 22-year-old, I was already like 10 years behind. Like there was 12-year-olds like on the internet, like just doing insane, like technical, like, magic to me. It was like, it's just like I was chatting with people
Spooky.
around the world who were like skilled animators, uh, 10 years younger than me. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm already behind, and I'm not even, not even in my 30s. So uh, I kind of changed, shift gears, and I met some people out there that are filmmakers, and I bought a camera rather than going to film school. That was some of the advice I got, is like, you know, don't waste your money. Don't spend $50,000 a year on school. Instead, buy a camera now, today, and just go start shooting stuff. And so that's what I did. I bought a DVX 100B, which at the time was like a revolutionary, mini DV standard definition camera, but it shot 24 frames a second, which, like, in today's world, that's like, okay, like literally your cell phone can do that. But at the time, nothing else shot 24 frames a second on video. It was all 60i, which looks terrible. So to get, cinematic, quote unquote, imagery, I got that camera and I just started making movies. And I actually shot a 1 hour film with a friend of mine for over like a year. We just spent, we'd shoot in his apartment, build a set, tear it down, build it again, tear it down for like, probably did it 25 times, and just slowly made well, not a feature, but a 1 hour long experiment in movie making.
What's the title?
The title is Ageha 6, which means like butterfly 6 in Japanese, but it's about a terminally ill man who is like estranged from his friends and family. Like his kids hate him, his wife hates him, and he's all alone in this hospital bed, and his only companion is a robot nurse. And he starts hallucinating, thinking that his family and friends have come to visit him to, like, pay their respect, to say goodbye, but it's just this stupid robot, chatting with him and trying to console him in his final moments. It's really dark comedy, but it's,
No,
yeah.
I figured that was a date movie. So
It was, so I mean, that was my first foray into filmmaking, really. I mean, on a, the most serious. Otherwise, I was just, shooting like club videos in Japan, and like I would go and bring my camera out to different events and just shoot stuff, just, for an excuse to shoot things. Um, and then I moved
did
back to
you
Canada.
did you at the beginning have like the fraud syndrome at all?
Oh, I
Did
still
you
have the fraud
you still
syndrome.
okay, you still
I
do?
mean, like, I think that's something that like, especially as a cinematographer, I think people deal with that like constantly, because you are asked to make decisions with such confidence, like in an instant, and you're making them every, like, even I was just shooting yesterday, and I had to, we walked into a set, and we had a prep day the week before, and we had discussed where the camera angles were going to be, and we get there on the day, and everything we talked about, the director decided to change every single thing. And not only was it now, instead of one scene, we were shooting two scenes. And literally all of it, every single thing we had discussed was completely different and wrong according to, because this is, I can get into it, but it's like you're posed these questions in the heat of the moment, and you need to answer those questions with confidence, because if you don't, people look at you like, with that, are you sure? In their
Yeah.
eyes. And so you have to be bold, but I mean, there's no way you don't second guess yourself internally all the time. So imposter syndrome, I
Okay.
think, as a cinematographer is like, I mean, at the end of the every day, I think I second guess what my decisions were. Like going home on the ride home after work, it's like, fuck, did I fuck that up? Did that shot, like,
I
I should have lit from the right side. What was I doing? Why did I light from the left side? Like, you know,
I could see how that could be a driving factor into doing a good job. I mean, it's not the best way to get there, but it's definitely, I mean, if that's what drives you to constantly like
improve and
critique
yeah,
and
build your
improve,
skill
yeah,
set.
like there's a bunch of there's no one, if you're a results driven person or a what was it, results or shit, work brain's not in the mode right now. If you're driven by results or a process or results, like, do you care about how we do it, or do you care that it's
What the
done?
result is. Yeah, exactly. Do you only care about the final product, or do you care about like
Yeah,
the actual process? Yeah. No, I mean,
exactly.
and I think early on, yeah, like I knew nothing, like I didn't know how to light. I didn't know, I wasn't the best maybe at nailing in camera exposure and stuff. Like those were all mistakes that I needed to figure out for myself. And so when I moved back to Canada with, that minimal experience under my belt, again, it was I own a camera. I want to shoot stuff. Let me help, let me
Yeah,
get my hands dirty.
put me in, coach.
Yeah, well, let me learn, rather than paying, like going to school and paying to learn. I wanted to get paid to learn, like that was my goal. It's like, just get me on set, I'll do any job. You don't even have to pay me. When I first started, like, I just want to be here on set. And, that was it. It was like, okay, I knew I wanted to do film for a living. I'd come to that conclusion before I came back to Canada. And
And how, well, you were in your early 20s, you said, right?
yeah,
22.
so I was 21 when I left. So I was 24 when I got home, I guess. And yeah, so I started, that would have been 2008. Um,
So my kind of follow up to this is that you are a cinematographer. You were a very good cinematographer, and we're going to get into those reasons in a bit. But I have learned that the more I talk to you crazy film people, I love you crazy film people, but the more I talk to you, the more I learn. And the fun thing that I learn is that you all go into it just like the first job that gets you in, and then you get really good at that job, but then you all want to be filmmakers. It seems that, like, the more I talk to people in other positions, it all kind of stems from, yeah, I wanted to be a director, so I started being an actor, or I wanted to make movies, so I started to do stunts, or I just picked up a camera, but then I got into production and producing and got away from set, right? Like, so when you bought the camera and you started to shoot stuff, did you ever kind of leer away, or were you just like, this is my jam, I like lenses and cameras because of photography and all that other stuff? Or did you have to jump around in a bunch of different positions early on before you were like, yep, cameraman, yep, cinematography?
yeah, I mean, there certainly is, like, there's a lot more opportunities, I think, if you don't care, you know what I mean? Like if you are a bit more open to experiences and getting out there. And I think there's a lot of value in, especially when you're starting out, like trying out each position and not necessarily worrying too much. Just, but like, you're, again, in the first year or two of your career, I think you should get out there and get dirty and try to get as many opportunities, whatever those opportunities may be. And if the world is pushing you a certain direction, I don't know that you need to fight it too much unless you are insanely passionate about one aspect of that skill. So for me, I mean, I've always gravitated to the camera, so I always wanted to, regardless of what my role was on camera, on the team, if they hired me as a grip, or an electric, to do those elements on set, I would always end up asking if I could help with the camera stuff. I'd always gravitate to the DP
Okay.
or the cinematographer or the assistant camera people, and I would always have conversations with them, and I would always try to interject myself into that world because that's where I wanted to be, and I knew that. But at the same time, I did still take work. I did grip work occasionally, and still not so much now, but even a couple of years ago, a friend of mine who's a gaffer who I work with all the time, he'll call me and be like, "Hey, I just need a grip for the day to do this commercial." And it's a big DP's coming from out of town. So I can meet this DP and interact with him. And maybe if he comes back, now he knows who I am and he'll hire me as his first assistant, like his focus puller, or, it's just, if you say no to things because you're worried that it'll affect how people see you, then you're closing off opportunities. So I think it's depending on where you are at your career. Like it comes to a point where right now in my career, if I take a job as a focus puller, it's probably going to be more detrimental to my career than if I don't. Like I would probably not very often will I take jobs as a focus puller right at this point in my career, because I want everyone to know that I'm a cinematographer, I'm a camera operator, I'm those things. And if they see me on set pulling focus, they just assume. If they've never met me before, they're like, okay,
yeah.
This guy's a focus puller, right? And now for me to go from focus puller to cinematographer in their eyes is very challenging, right? Like you can't just flip a switch like that. So you want now at the stage of my career, because I have a big range of work, the first time I meet someone, I want them to think that I'm a cinematographer. That's it. So
Okay.
But that's a process, I think.
Oh yeah, no, totally. You can't really know. I mean, I'm not to be all philosophical, but like it's good to touch all the things, and then kind of all right, I'm good. I know what I like. I'm not gonna fuck around anymore. I'll make that decision and do the one thing and do the one thing really well and get really good at it. So
yeah, I think also like having experience in all the other departments, and regardless, I mean, like locations department, ADs. I've worked as a first AD on fairly not big sets, but like on things that needed to have a good first AD. I've kind of played in all different departments, and I think your understanding of those departments and how they run well, like seeing a well-run department and being a part of it, can only make you better at your job, whatever that final position may be, whether it's cinematographer, whether it's production coordinator, doesn't matter, gaffer, key grip. Like understanding every other department and how the pitfalls that they are dealing with will make you better at your job for sure. There's no way that doesn't.
How does the relationship between the director and the cinematographer differ from a lot of other departments, if at all? Like it, I want it to. Why I'm asking is I want there to be I want you to explain the difference, because I feel that, and this is my weak eye looking at this. This isn't a trained eye, but it seems that cinematography is now being talked about more than it was before, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now being, maybe there's a light being, some of the spotlights coming to that department because of technology and the evolution of cameras, and people have, now there's this big record of what your department does for a movie and how it's shot and how it's lit, and I just want you to explain if there is a difference, I guess, in that way, to shed some light on what you do specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I think just because we're constantly being, visuals and stuff are being shoved in our faces, right? Like with cell phones and YouTube and everything, those types of, I think that's why cinematography is maybe more talked about. And in regards to like the relationship between the director and the cinematographer, I guess you could look at it like, it's almost like each department head is kind of the top of a pyramid, and so like the cinematographer is at the top of the grip and electric pyramid, and there's each kind of branch down that pyramid is the the next person down. And so obviously the director is at the pinnacle of the biggest pyramid, and you're kind of the next step down that then branches out to a million other people. So the director doesn't necessarily need to or want to have to talk to the gaffer and the key grip and things like that. They
Yeah,
do. They'll have a
yeah,
relationship with them, but more so they communicate their desires and their visions and their thoughts to the director of photography, and then the director of photography kind of distills that into the language of, you know, what a key grip and gaffer expects to hear. So in that regards, I think the directors and cinematographer relationship is like, it's so many different things because it's so lengthy, right? Like it starts from prep, and it you know, often when the projects are just being formed, sometimes the cinematographer comes in later. It really depends. Oftentimes they can be, you know, like a call that happens later in the process. But I think films that end up having a really unique style or a really interesting voice um, have the cinematographer in the conversation early, because that, you know, weighs in a lot on a lot of aspects of the film. And yeah, I think like there's so many things that need to be discussed and decided upon, like camera choice, lens choice, lighting style, lighting references. These are all things that you would have a conversation about with the director, and you'd need to kind of, because like my job as a cinematographer is to meet their needs, you know, to get them what they want, um, whatever it is that they have in their head. I need to try to provide. So whatever, you know, we have to dig through their brain and comes to a conclusion
yeah.
that is amicable to both of us, right? That fits both of our styles and our tastes, really. So it's an odd relationship, and one that, because, you know, each time I'm on a different project, I mean, often I work with BJ, and so we have such a good shorthand and we don't have to have lengthy discussions about things often because we've just been working together for so long. But when I'm walking onto a set for the first time with a director I've never met, like just this week, I shot for 3 days at the Manitoba Theatre Center, and there's a theater director who, in her brain, she's wired for theater, and she has, you know, you know, in her mind, she sees something and she wants to capture that on video, and it's my job to, you know, to get it to a place that she's happy with visually and lighting and camera moves, and, you know, and that was a, you know, it's an interesting challenge because you're walking there with no relationship, no prior knowledge of what they're after. You show up and you have to just kind of, you know, can't have an ego, you know, you just have to make it work. You got to fit it to their desires, while also like not letting them take missteps, because they're going to ask you for stuff that's probably a bad idea, right?
Yeah, you're there to filter. You're there to channel the good and filter the bad, so to speak, and then step it down the line. And that's kind of like it. It's always, it takes a village. It takes a city to make a movie sometimes,
Absolutely.
depending on the size of the movie and the scope and where it's being made around the world. So the whole point of that was I really want every, because I learned from Shelley Antis, like I'm a lazy piece of shit because I'm just focusing on the primary characters. I've never really put any thought into casting extras and background and create, like, the world is created through a
Hmm.
lot of that, and learning that I was like, oh, there's a lot of responsibility there, and you know, where does responsibility lie, and what teams are creating what aspects, and how is it funneling it down? Because, like, my love of my obsession, my boyfriend, the movies, um, I I hold dear, and I like knowing the behind the scenes stuff. So I'm like, that's why I want people to know. So that's cool. I think that's really neat, because it is always an odd marriage, and it's like it's a forced relationship
Hmm.
from the get go, in a very intimate process, two people creating things and sharing them and hoping that they see eye to eye on something. Like, there's
Yeah,
a lot
like
of,
oftentimes I'm hired, you know, just because of my like physical location, you know, like they are shooting in Winnipeg and they need someone here, and would they have rather flown in their best, you know, best friend cinematographer dude from wherever, Vancouver, LA? Yeah, obviously. They've worked with that person, they have a working relationship with them, they would rather have that person, but that's not always an option budgetary, you know,
yeah,
in terms of the budget. So yeah, it's like you get thrown in these situations where you've got to figure it out, and you got to figure it out in a amicable, way, quickly, and make people happy, but also don't don't do something that you think is bad if you can at all help it. I mean, definitely been times when I've been asked to do something and it's like, okay, like I
Yeah, we
don't
all
think it's
have.
a good
That's life,
idea,
man. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, you got to make compromises. So
That's essentially like that's an everywhere thing.
yeah,
That's
for
that's
sure.
a that's off a film set.
Yeah, film
that's the
doesn't
way.
change that aspect of work relationships, but um, it does create a lot of opportunities for those types of things to come up.
What I know I asked this before when we got into some crazy conversation, so I'm hoping that will inspire and we'll channel it again as you mentioned earlier. What are some what like I'm gonna ask this the way I ask it, and I'm not gonna ask it the way some professional would. But like, what gets you hard when you're like lighting and shooting a scene? Like, what makes your technical nerdy rocks get off when you're like, what's your fuck yeah moments, kind of right? Like what?
Right. Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess it's there's a few different scenarios that can kind of make me excited in a on a film set, and certain things are, when you're in that development stage and you're talking about, the goals of a scene, or you have this elaborate shot in mind that, is making you pull out your hair to try to figure out the logistics of it, and it takes you all night to even just set up, because whether it's a budgetary constraint, you don't have the right people to do that, or you just have these, you get pitched these ideas that it's easy enough to say, right? Anyone can say, hey, let's take the camera and have it fly this way and go around here and up there and down here, and turn the corner, and then it swoops around and you end up on this beautiful shot of this. Like, it's easy to talk about, but then to actually execute it, and execute it in a way that you're happy with, I think those are the fuck yeah moments, right? Like when you're talking to the director about something, and then like a year later you get to watch it in a movie, and you're like, oh, it actually worked, right? Like, like that, it, like, we did it, we actually accomplished that insane thing that I was like, I'm sorry, you want what to have happen oh, all right, okay. Like, I mean, and BJ is very, he doesn't hold back, like in terms of, like, if he's got a shot idea, I mean, I'm often looking at him like, all right, man, like that one, like, I don't know how we're gonna do that, but I'll try to figure it out. Um, like those types of challenges, to me, that's the exciting part of my job, is like, give me a scenario that's as challenging as possible, and then if we pull it off and if it actually works, like, I mean, I'll give you an example. So
Yes.
in one of our movies, Patterns, um, we start, so initially BJ wanted to be above the tree line, and he wanted the camera to swoop down to the front of a house, and then it finds a family in a living room through the window at nighttime, and then that same shot, now without cutting, tracks across that front of the house, and as you follow an actress going to a doorway, and then you see her through the window of the doorway, and then you end up in front of another window, in front of another room, and then the camera goes through that window physically and ends up in the room. Then you walk through from that room into the dining room that you saw from outside the window, and it goes around that table inside the room in a 360, like full, you're seeing every part of that room. Then you walk back into the previous room that we were just in, and end up on an actor as you follow him from the dining room into the other, like, coat room. And
um, can you do that
yeah,
one more time? I'm just kidding.
right, yeah. Oh, by the way, that take was pretty good, but we needed to go again
Yeah.
because one of the actresses flubbed her line. No, it's like, so it's like, okay, on paper that sounds insane, and it's even more insane to actually try to do it, right? So what it ended up, so we wanted to use a drone, but we were too close to the airport, and this was prior to being allowed, like with the licensing things was kind of in the gray area. We couldn't get official drone licenses at the time, or at least it wasn't viable for us to do so. I'm sure there was someone who could have done it, but we didn't have access to that. So we put a 25-foot crane, the camera on a 25-foot crane, and then we built dolly track for the crane so that we could move the crane physically closer to the house. So we could start far away from the house and be up in the trees. And then as we come down out of the trees, we can dolly the crane towards the house. And so that that crane can then pan across the windows of the front of the house. And we've green screened the far window so that by the time we get to that window, we can push the crane into the green screen and cut to a camera inside the house that then continues that whole, now it's a gimbal Steadicam shot where we're now spinning around, following the actors through the house and back around. But I mean, logistically lighting that shot was an absolute nightmare. I mean, I could see every inch of every part of every, there was literally 3 places I could put lights, and not see them in the shots. So, those types of challenges. But I think it's a very effective, it's one of it's on, part of it at least is on my reel, I think. And I think it's a really stunning moment that I've shown to a lot of people and been like, check this out. Like, look what we were able to pull off.
Well, it's if it's on your reel, then it's going to be on after this on the website, because I've seen this shot. This shot, if you're willing to let me strong arm you into put it there, is like, we talked about it the first time, and that's kind of what I was alluding to. And I was like, let's see if I can pull it out of him again as naturally as possible. See that, ladies and gentlemen? That's a pro right there, pointing out how good he is. Never mind. So, but this shot is, I remember it as almost, is it one full take? Like, did you edit it to one full take?
Yeah, it's just a oneer. Yeah, the camera doesn't cut for probably 2 minutes, I think.
That is a long take flex, my friend.
It's a long one. And there's a few that BJ likes his oneers. Let's say that. There's a few of those.
And this, we didn't get to talk about this. I don't think I brought it up, but if I did, slap me for asking you twice. The long take, like, is it overrated, or is it artful if it's done properly, or is it just directors and cinematographers showing how big they're
jerking off? Yeah.
Is it camera length at that point?
Yeah, I think it just depends on what the aim of that process is. And I think I don't know, because I also edited a lot of our stuff. Like, I edited that short film as well, and most of the stuff that me and BJ make, I end up editing. So there has to be an understanding of, because I think to me the most challenging thing of a film is the pace of the film. If a film lags, or if a film's speeding through details and you can't follow it, it fails, right? Like, you feel it as the audience member. Something feels off. You may not be able to identify what is wrong, but something will feel wrong. And when you do a oneer, the whole point is that you don't cut away, and to not be able to cut away, because cutting allows you to create rhythm and let a film breathe and create a visual language that can continue out throughout that whole film. And without that ability to cut away, you need to nail it pacing wise, that in that shot, you don't have any other options. That's the idea, at least, is that you're kind of flexing your ability as a filmmaker, right? You're saying, like, I know that this shot will tell the story in one shot, and it'll do it in a way that will not only allow the story to move forward in a fluid and interesting way, but also I'm so confident in the amount of information that I'm providing the audience and the timing that I'm able to provide it to them, that I don't need any other shots. This is the shot, right? Okay. To me, it's a really confidence. It's showing people that you have a lot of confidence in what you are showing the audience, because you can hide so much in an edit. You can, like, I'm on these sets of these big movies, and they're shooting 20, 30 setups of a scene, like one scene has like 20 to 30 different shots, all like, and so that's just telling me that they haven't decided what they want that scene to be yet. you know. They want
Interesting.
options to cut to anything, literally anything and everything, from up and down and left and right and close up and wide, and like.
So, is that? And I'm just asking because if the law of averages says, the more you like, the more times you do it, you should expect results at some point, right? Because it's just faith in numbers. So is that a misguided person, or is that somebody who wants to have as much of a creative palette in editing as possible? Like,
Yeah, I think it depends. Like, I think beginner filmmakers often will do too many takes. Maybe that's where they fail, because rather than, like, at least on the big movies, they won't do that many takes, but they'll do a lot of setups, which I think is better. If you're going to do a lot of takes, move the camera, get something different, like, you got to take, like, know when to move on and get something else. But also, I think, yeah, if you're filming too much, then you just, like, I don't know, you kind of lose, you can lose the pace of the movie if you break it up too much. Like, the acting can become stilted, and whereas if you decide that you're going to do one angle or one, like, often, like, some of the best shots in cinema are just like long, slow move-ins, and stuff is just happening, like the blocking of that scene, or the action of that scene is so strong in one shot. To me, that's really, really good cinema, is when you have that confidence. um but I mean, obviously, there's amazing sequences too that are cut up in lots of pieces, so it just depends on the story and what you want to say. But I think to be able to pull, there's only certain people who can pull off oneers effectively. Not to like say that I'm amazing at it or anything like that. I don't think I am. I think I obviously have room for improvement in that type of style. But I enjoy it, and I think if it works, the danger is, you like you said, if, like, I guess the cop out is some people shoot, oh, it's gonna be a oneer, but then they, like, go in and shoot a bunch of other stuff just to have it. And it's like, well, now you're defeating now you're just showing that you don't believe in yourself. So
well, yeah, kind of. I would say, like, if you want more in the chamber, you want
mhm.
to,
Yeah, you want that escape. You
yeah.
want that get out of jail free card. So
And I mean, like, some of the most famous, like the one that I always think of, and I know there's so many more that don't really get enough credit because you don't watch for them until, like, you don't really notice. Well, to like a green thumb like me, I don't notice them in one until I'm really in one,
mhm.
you know. And then I'm like, oh, how long have I been in this? Like, the long,
Right,
like
right.
the casino long take
Mhm.
throughout all of
Or
Can You Hear Me Knocking? Like,
True
that one.
Detective. True
True
Detective to
Detective.
me is like,
Oh my God, yes.
like,
Okay, two things have changed since we've talked. We've agreed. We've democratically voted. We're bringing TV in 2021, so we're expanding the real
oh, okay,
world.
okay. So we were not allowed to speak about TV prior to
Well,
this, or
we it wasn't that we weren't allowed. It was just like, well, I want to focus on one thing, and then maybe we're good at that one thing before we start
I
doing other
understood. Yeah,
things.
no,
So,
for sure. It's just that
um,
the line is so blurred now, I feel like, between
yeah.
television and cinema.
Well, and that's kind of the point. So I'm glad you brought that up because that long take of, and we're more than, I'm sure we're thinking the same one, where it's the
Mhm.
gang.
Yeah, and they the helicopter in
Yeah,
the sky,
yeah. It's one of the most beautiful shots I think I've ever seen in my
and he
entire
goes
life.
up and over the wall for some reason. It's
Yeah,
it's so over the top as a one or two. Like, it does a bunch of stuff that you're just like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, sure, why not? Like, we're already here. Why not throw the camera guy on a platform and throw him over a goddamn wall? Let's let's
right.
let's do that.
Oh my
It's crazy.
God, and
And I love
I
that there's
remember.
there's actually like a couple fuck ups in that one or two. Like, the camera bumps into a wall, like, you see it. It for sure hits, like, the camera guy for sure hit a wall and shakes the camera. But,
Is
like,
it is it when they fall on the ground together and he's it's obviously where they're having like a go, they're still going, but he wasn't supposed to hit something. He was probably supposed to catch the momentum, I'm guessing, to keep Like,
there's one moment when they're in the small apartment, like or like small house, and they're
yeah, the
traveling through the rooms, and you see as he's transitioning from one room to another, like he clearly hits a door frame or someone bumps into the camera because there's clearly a bump. But like again, this is just me as a camera guy being like, yeah, I mean that's gonna fucking happen. Like this is probably like a 12-minute. Like how long does that goddamn take? It's insane. Like it's
I think it's 8 minutes.
yeah,
I
no,
think
yeah, I think you're right.
it's stupid long. That one and Birdman. Those are the
Oh, for
two
sure.
that
Birdman, yeah, is just
and
unreal. That movie's on another level.
it he yeah and I just there's so much. See, the thing about some long takes is that sometimes you're just filming like the casino one looks like some of the original start of it was like they were giving themselves room in the long take to start filming in on the crowd and backing out, like as long as there was action happening.
Hmm.
Whereas I feel with Birdman, they weren't acting until maybe 3 to 5 seconds before the camera changed room. Like it really felt like it was a domino effect
Sure.
played perfectly, where watching the casino one just kind of looks like you're watching action, close up of conversation, pull out, move back, watching action.
Yeah,
Like,
like I think the casino one's maybe like a little bit it's an earlier, you can tell it's an earlier kind of version of that, right? Like it
yeah,
that shot led to Birdman, right? Like the
okay,
Birdman
all
is a
right,
culmination of what we've kind of the language that is established in those earlier films, I think, right? Like because it just it wasn't technologically, I mean maybe someone could have pulled it off, I don't know, but probably not. Like and then even like 1917 as another great
yeah,
option. I mean just like a war movie that literally never goes backwards, to me is just such a great, like you could, I think that's like a really interesting tagline visually. Like it always moves forward in time and in motion. You know, like you never go
yeah.
back.
I watched it once and I was really disappointed that I didn't see it in the theaters. So I really like I gave it attention, but I really didn't give it my all. And I know that that's like a ridiculous thing to say because it is like everybody I know, like the cats are even telling me how good of a fucking movie it is. So like I really need to sit down, turn the lights off, and like get locked into it. I think I may have just been war movied out at the time. I
No,
think
for
that
sure.
might
No,
have
I can
been it.
understand. Like, I mean, I was fortunate to see it in theaters, like as it, as it came out, and yeah, I think there's just something about being stuck there with a camera that doesn't, allow you to. There's no like when whenever anytime a camera cuts, you have to resituate yourself as the viewer, right? Like, okay, where are we? Who are we with? What are we doing? Like you're answering those questions to yourself. That movie never asks those questions ever.
No, it doesn't.
Like you're always with those people following their path. Like you like half of that information is already answered to you at all times, and so it's just a different journey, um which I enjoyed. I mean, I don't know that it's like the best movie of all time or anything like that. I mean, but what it does very well.
What kind of like what's the shittiest rig you've ever used to light with?
Oh fuck. uh Man,
Like
trying to.
how bad is it? Not how bad has it been, but like how fucked have you been where you're like, man, like shit just didn't work out and we got to make something out of
Yeah, I mean, I've
X,
been like
Y, like
crammed in tiny little rooms, way like up flights of stairs where you have no more room to put light, like to get lights in the physical space, and then you just have nowhere, like you're shooting two cameras and you've got a mirror in the room, and so you're seeing like everything, so basically have one spot to put the light, and I'm it's got barn doors, and I've put the light up as high as I can to get it out of the shot, and then I'm just basically ramming this light as much as I can to get it to fit in this space and have it do some semblance of the style of lighting that I want it to do, right? So it's those things where you just don't have the right tools or the physical space. I mean, like that, it was just I didn't get to scout that location, and we were just we had to shoot this scene, and I had essentially one, maybe two lights with me. And does it work? Yeah, it works. Is it in my reel? No, it's not in my reel. Um, what could I have done it better? Yes, if I had had more time, and different resources available to me. Sure, but it's those types of situations that I think um, allow you to, it gives you a good opportunity to stop and think about it. Like right now, like, okay, I'm thinking, I'm running through it in my head, like, well, what would I do differently today? Like if I had any options to me, how would I have changed that scene? So it's always like, you can always learn, and you can always do something different and often better. Um, in terms of other shitty lights, I mean, like, I don't know, like, work lights are often the first thing you get to play with because they're cheap and they turn on. Um, like I've built, different panels myself with strips of LEDs and things like that. And I've had them where I've taped them to a ceiling, and then they get hot and the tape starts melting and they start falling off, like it's, halfway through a take, and you're like, oh, God damn it. And you got to figure out some other way to mount it up there, just bullshit like that. But um,
I mean,
otherwise, no light, no
that's
light's a shitty
ingenious.
light. If it turns on, it's good. You can make it work.
I love how like you're just dwindling it down to any light will work, no big deal.
Yeah, I mean, if it creates illumination, there's ways to make it beautiful, right? Some way,
I like
somehow.
that. That's a positive spin on a dollar store flashlight. I mean,
Sure.
like,
I
yeah,
mean,
and I mean,
okay, yeah. Like, you want to talk flashlights? We we had to do. What did we do? We created these little LED lights for a cell phone light gag, but they were square with holes in the middle of them. They just, the way that the LED chip was designed. And we realized that anytime you pointed it at the lens, you could see the internal reflection of that square. So it looked nothing like a cell phone light would look. But the normal cell phone light just wasn't bright enough. So we had to, like, quickly build a new light source, out of LED. Like, luckily we just had some LED kind of chips around that we could rig up. But um, that was one of those times where it's just like, okay, this is not, we built this thing and it's just not working. We threw diffusion on it, still didn't, like, do what thing we wanted it to do. So you just have to make it work. But there's always a way.
there's always a way. I love that. That's the tagline. There it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
That's your first poll quote. This I've heard this thing, and it's a new thing to me, but I've known it for a while. What's magic hour, and is it really as big a deal as it can be in certain places, I would imagine, or is it the same no matter where you go?
So yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about quality of light in film, um, and that's, often when you're out scouting, you have, apps on your phone to check the, sun path, sun tracker, because you need to know at what time and where in the sky the sun's going to be, because that's going to dictate, which direction you want to film. Because 90% of the time, you probably want to backlight your talent with the sun. Like, you don't, if you're facing facing your talent and the sun is behind you as the camera guy, that's probably not going to look as good as if you did the other way around, because that's going to flatten out the image and it's not going to provide you shape. So golden hour, or magic hour, as it's often called, is that hour or so of time when the sun is just on the horizon, or right around the horizon. So the sky glows in a, just, the sun, the lower the sun is in the sky, often the more pretty things look, because you can see it in your shot, and it's raking across the ground, creating these nice long beautiful shadows, and the quality of light, the color of that sun at that hour is often of a gold, like more warm, because normally the sun is very cold, very cool in color, but at that time it's much more warm, and so it gives it this beautiful, glowy, magical feel, and so we call it magic hour. And then right after that is something that, I guess, I mean, some people refer to it as blue hour, and that's after the sun has then since set, and the sky is still getting that reflected light from the sun just under the horizon. And so the sky turns up very, very bright blue, especially on cameras nowadays because they're more sensitive. You can actually pick that up a lot more. And often if you look at actors' faces and things in that hour, it just, everything is like really interesting. There's no source of light, like there's no direct source, but everything's just got this lovely blue, softness to it. So that's right after sunset, and that's blue hour. But I think there's many, like often what you don't want to shoot as at like 12 noon, you get that right over the head sun, unless you're shooting like a desert scene where you want to feel that harshness, and you get what we call raccoon eyes, and you get, the deep pockets under the eyes. And it's very hard to make people look good. They get the shadow, the chin shadow, and it's a very not pretty time of day to shoot. And that's usually what we will try to avoid as much as possible as cinematographers.
Okay. All right. And I mean, like all these conflicting things on this, at a circus on a set, like I can only imagine where it's like, well, we can't shoot till 12. Yeah. Well, what are we going to do till then? Like that, like
often, on commercials, you're only shooting it for a day, maybe 2 days. So you don't really have an option to just not shoot from 10 to 3. Like that's not a thing. So
No.
yeah, you just gotta take, there's tools that we have in our arsenal, diffusion and big frames, whether it's negative fill, which would be like a solid, like a black frame, or diffusion. You can put a 20 by 20 up to try to block the sun from, hitting your talent in an ugly and harsh way.
And we don't want to do that. I mean, that's anti everything movies. We want to make what the world really looks like on screen. So, let's try to light them in accordance with reality.
Well, we try to make it as pretty. Like it's more fake than it is real, but it's like try to make it as pretty as possible, as often as possible. If that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. When you watch a movie, being a camera operator, you look through a lens, you look through a modified version of it. How do you lose that watching whatever you watch this week with the wife and the kids? Does that, like, can you take off the lens? Can you take off the focus and be carried away into a world of entertainment?
I can, but yeah, but it's not. It's certainly not as easy. Any what's that?
Has it gotten harder?
It has gotten harder. Any flaws, anything that would be considered to take someone else out of a film is like probably just glaringly jarring to me. I don't know. It's just like I love movies and I love watching movies, and so I find that I don't know. I watch movies in a different way now. Like to me, I just watched Mandy.
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, like, I don't know if regular moviegoers would enjoy that film as much as I did, just because it's.
What's okay? All right, hang on. Preface what it's about. Just like.
Oh, I don't. It doesn't matter what it's about. It could be about anything. It's like it's just so visually stimulating. Like it's got taggers and churches with beams that are all red and like noise and like flares, and like I don't even care what they're talking about or the story. It's just like the visuals are so in your face, and it's just like, I mean, he builds an axe, like, and it's glinting, and there's just the richness of the visuals are so compelling that like the story to me was like, yeah, that was okay. But by God, what a beautiful movie! Like,
throw away the story. Just
like usually that's not the case, obviously, but
no. Yeah.
And the story was fine. Don't get me wrong. It's still an interesting story. I just don't know that the story, if you pitch that story without that style, I think it's not that exciting. We've seen movies in a similar fashion, I think, and it's not telling anything like so overly unique that it stands alone. But man, that style. Unreal, unreal. I
No,
really like that movie.
I think that's cool. I mean, like um I don't I've never cared what I think I've tried not to care. I'm sure at one point I thought I was an elitist fuck. I'm sure people would probably say that about me now too. But
Yeah,
I try not to. What was that?
we no, we all would like feel that way about ourselves, I think, because we
Okay.
we're so opinionated. But yes, you're an elitist fuck. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I was pandering earlier. You're pandering now. So, but I fucking lost my thought. That's okay.
Sorry.
If I had a question though that I do remember. If you could see the world through 16:9 or 3:4, like what you look at the movie you're making to make it so it looks great on screen. So there's different sizes of view and different focus points and whatnot. So if you could see life through a lens, what style of lens would you want to see life through?
Man, that's tough.
That's what I didn't ask you
there's,
before. I just came up with that on the fly.
there's so many options. Like what? Because like I mean, even as like a father now, it's like
Sure, yeah.
that's a different perspective, right? Like I'm sure if I was just like a single, in my 20s still, I would have a very different answer to this. But and also just like the experience of having witnessed so many different styles of films and lenses and things. I mean, lenses change everything. So that's a really hard question. But I mean, because there's like there's kind of two thought processes. There's the master primes, the RE master primes, which are like the sharpest, cleanest, no focus breathing. Like it's the best possible rendering of that image. And then there's like old Russian lenses from the 70s that are like warped and dirty. They're like, as a lens tech will tell you, they're made with vodka and cigarettes. Like and that's gonna like that's the Mandy look. I mean, it's just these old, shitty, like optically terrible, like arguably like images, but they have an organic, like totally different feel to them. So I don't know. Do you want to see the world in its most pristine and beautiful, or do you want to see it in its surreal, you know,
Yeah.
uh, gauzy
Uh,
and
I like
blurredness? Do you want
you.
to take the edge off?
You sold me on vodka and cigarettes. I mean, I was like, okay, okay. I want to see it through Russian vodka and cigarettes.
Yes, comrade.
Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, it would. It's
So I
what
don't know,
would
to
you?
answer your question. I don't know which one I go. I think it changes from day to day. Like, can
Sure,
I on
yeah,
weekends, can I swap it?
yeah,
Like,
totally. You can change it out. I
fuck
just,
it.
yeah, like,
Yeah, then
I.
then let's go Lomo anamorphics and RE Master Primes. There you go.
All
Those are my two
right.
choices.
Um, can can a movie is a story still strong enough if the cinematography suffers? Do you think story can carry for it
Yeah, I mean,
and
as a
people can?
cinematographer, it's probably a bad thing to say that, but yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, like, like, and unfortunately, my job isn't as relevant as I want it to be. Like sound is more important. Like it's like blasphemy for me to say that, but because that's my entire job, is to make it as pretty and as interesting looking as possible. But a movie absolutely can survive. I mean, documentary more so than film, but I mean, film is so open to interpretation nowadays. Like I've seen lots of movies that the visuals, I'd be like, well, I would never shoot something like that. It's grainy and shitty, and you can barely make out what it is they're trying to show you, but it works. Like so it's
Yeah, no, yeah,
so yeah. I mean, as much as I want to say that no, it must be if it's not visually amazing, then it's the worst movie ever. And that's clearly not the case.
no. I just yeah, you because sometimes lighting, sometimes props can leave a fucking coffee cup in a scene, right? Like what and I mean because there is so many moving parts, it's not so much about the ego of the question where it's like, can your movie survive without bad, like I realize that now after asking that, that's kind of maybe what it came off as, but no, I mean, like you can, each department, like, can you, if it's a good story, can bad acting, can the story carry bad acting? Can the cinematography carry bad lighting? Like, like is there,
To a
because
degree, I think, yeah,
yeah,
all of those things are forgivable with the right story. If the story's compelling enough, if it like I think a lot of that stuff disappears, right? Like
yeah,
I think like there's movies that have, on made on $0 that, like you look at Blair Witch, for example, like that movie,
totally.
no one's going to tell you that that movie's like the best looking or best sounding movie in the world, but it caught the right attention of people at the time, and it created its own, like it was different stylistically, and it was being unique often is enough to carry a film, I think.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. And I'm learning that I've got thumbs down at nothing but the blockbuster. That's not like the blockbuster is
Yes.
sexy and fun and energetic and an adventure, but it's the storytelling. I mean,
Well, it's a small piece of the actual cinema market, right? Like it's what gets shoved in our faces all the time, but
yeah,
it doesn't really represent that large of a portion of what's being made if you're willing to go out and look for stuff. I think as the first time you end up at a film festival and you sit down and you have no idea what you're about to experience, and then you see a movie that
sure.
stays with you, that you remember scenes from for the rest of your life, and you were like, well, I would never have gone to watch this if it hadn't, just been dropped in my lap. Um, but I mean, that's, to me, that's the beauty of cinema, is like you get to experience these, get taken on these wild rides that you were like, well, okay, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, no, I agree with you because the little pocket of films that have done that for me, I remember them from those. Like you're like that festival or even that person who shows you a movie. Like everything's illuminated.
Hmm.
Did you see that?
I've heard of it. I don't know that I've actually seen Everything Is Limited.
It's a true story based on guy who goes back to the Ukraine to visit his he's Jewish, so he's going back through the war to see where his family came from.
Okay.
And um it was something way outside of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And I was shown it and I was mind blown that stories like this were being talked about. And so if the story's good enough, it can carry a lot of things. Because I mean, it's Liv Schreiber actually directed it.
Oh, crazy. Yeah.
It's got Eugene Hoots from Gogo Bordello in it. It's got oh Jesus,
Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood. Thank you for being my Jamie.
I'm watching the trailer right now.
Good catch. It's a great story. It's a true story. It's a heartbreaking story, and it has all those things that like you weren't expecting, right?
Right,
so
right.
It stays with you, and you emote to it, and so yeah, that's why the no more. Like, let's see a blockbuster. I'm gonna watch.
No,
Wonder
I
Woman
mean,
1984. Like,
I mean,
it's
I'm
not gonna
excited to
not
watch
happen,
Dune.
but
Like, I mean,
yeah,
I'm a fan of the books, and I love the fact that it has this weird, like we almost like Lord of the Rings esque, like it's
yeah,
not able to be made as a movie, kind of thing. And then someone else is trying, and someone who
yeah.
I'm interested to see his take on, like, I mean, I've watched um, the David Lynch version, and I've watched the TV, miniseries, and so it's
Oh,
like,
okay, so you are a fan.
yeah, so I have I've got the history of it in my head in terms of like visually and like cinematically how it's been done. So I'm really just like, to me, that's a really, I'd still consider it a blockbuster, obviously, absolutely.
Oh, totally, yeah.
So
After
it's,
his
mhm.
success with Blade Runner 2049, I mean, he's done a lot of stuff before that, but I feel that was a big push for Villeneuve to kind of
Oh, he's mainstream.
cement.
Yeah.
Yeah, very mainstream, exactly.
Yeah.
Prisoners, I love. I
Hmm.
absolutely love. I think
And Enemy, I
it
think,
was.
is a really interesting film.
I have been meaning to get to it. I keep. It's one of those where you're like, if it's like M Night Shyamalan did. The Getaway, the
Okay.
weekend getaway movie where like the kids go visit their grandparents and the grandparents are going nuts.
Okay.
It's just like when a director does like one of those, like, I'm just sneaking a film in,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, I've been working on it secret. I love those. Those are fun
Totally.
because you're like, wow, obviously you didn't feel the need to hype this, and you're really passionate about it, which is great. And one for commerce, one for art, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
just
yeah.
let them,
100%.
So, or you're
Which is
Daniel
true. Which
Radcliffe,
is
and
true of even myself. Like I take a lot of jobs that are just for the paycheck because I live in Winnipeg. There's not like we don't have a
yeah,
ton of options.
well, you gotta eat, man. Everybody's got a
Yeah,
mortgage, right?
exactly. So, when you do get the chance to work on the passion project of yours, then that's you met make it worth your time.
And that's film festivals. To
Hmm.
tie that back in, right? That's a
Right.
lot of passion projects on the screen at the same time. That's a lot of hungry, new or great or unknown but talented filmmakers hanging out, showcasing stuff, hoping somebody big comes and signs a deal
Totally.
and gives you your dream budget to do it. Which I kind of want to tie back into stuff here. Not that this wasn't relevant, but I just wanted to get some ideas because I know we talked about a lot of the catalog, a lot of the reel before, and I'm going to save that. This is my thought from before. I wanted to tell you, I'm going to save that for when it's me, you, and BJ,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because then we can play off, what director, what cinematographer kind of thing. But um, we talked about some stuff on set before, and a nickname of yours stuck with me, and I don't want to butcher the story, but it is. I did want to get into it was interesting to me, and I think it's interesting to a lot of people, is what it's like for nudity and romance and the sex scenes for the camera operator, and your illustrious nickname that you somehow managed to get for
Oh
yourself.
man. Yeah. Yeah. I
Wasn't
mean,
letting this one go.
I've shot a few love scenes. The first one was actually probably the most, I guess, serious. It was we did like an NSI Drama Prize film, which was just a short film. I don't think I talked about it last time. It's called Chopin's Heart, and it's weird for myself and BJ because we're not dramatic filmmakers, and it's not the way we lean, but we paired up with a scriptwriter and we got a grant to make this short film, and so why not? Like, here's a chance to
Yeah.
shoot something with some money, so let's do it. And that had a love scene in it, and that was like, almost fully nude, two actors, small room, closed set, obviously, so that means no other. It's just the director and myself and the focus puller usually. um and yeah, it was just, you just kind of create an atmosphere that's as relaxed and as, you know non-judgmental as possible, and you allow people to just be as comfortable as possible, and you just want to have fun with it, right? Because like I think the energy of the scene is, I mean, depending on the movie, that one was much more serious, and then conversely, The Return, our horror movie, it's a much more playful scene in that one. That one, they're like, messing around, and then this shadow creeps upon the wall behind her, and she freaks out, and she is consoled by him in bed, kind of thing, because she thought she saw a ghost, and he's laughing at her. So there's like in that scene specifically in The Return, there's some comedy and humor elements built into the scene, so it's more lighthearted, and they're, for them to be like in a love scene, it already lent itself to being more of a joke, whereas the other one is like a hard drama. There's no jokes built into the dialogue. It's very serious. It's about a teacher like having an affair with his student, and she's like a cellist. He's a music teacher, and so it's a very serious moment, um and so in that sense, it was just like trying to make sure that I'm not awkward on set. I don't want my energy to affect
Yeah.
anyone else's energy. Like, so like there's certainly some of that aspect to it. It's like, how do I just break the ice, so to speak, in this scenario? So you just, I mean, you have a relationship built up with people as you're working with them and stuff, so it should, it's not like that different, but as long as you're not like a weirdo about it, it's usually fine. But in the Return, as one does, you look for unique angles to film the scene, and to make it, visually interesting. And so one of the best places, quote unquote, for me to be was under and behind the bed, like behind the headboard kind of thing. So uh, I'm literally like sprawled out with this camera on my shoulder behind the headboard as they're like rocking the bed and like doing a love scene. Um, and they
I don't mean
stop.
to laugh.
They stop and like we're joking around and they like the one of, I think the male actor who's like laying in bed and the female actor's on like kind of on top of him above me above the camera, and it's all about her. He didn't actually realize where I was. um, because we had just kind of set the scene and they walked in and they were doing, because there's two cameras, so there's another camera filming it as well. And I think I said something and he kind of looked back and like found me behind the bed. He's like, "Whoa, there's basement Brad." And I was like the creeper in the basement, just like we also had a bunch of scenes in a basement in that movie, which I think lended, to me being a weirdo hiding in the basement, like filming with my voyeur camera. But yeah, so Basement Brad is my nickname from that scene.
Didn't you start this whole story with trying to make the moment as comfortable as possible? It's like the one
The
thing, like
girl knew I was
everything.
there. That's who I was
Okay.
mostly concerned with.
Okay. All
She
right.
could
Fair.
see she could see
Yeah.
me. She obviously knew the camera was there. But
Yeah.
I think I maybe he had been there. I don't remember exactly how it happened that he forgot that I was there. But I'm just like, oh, obviously I'm very quiet in my camera operating abilities, and I went unnoticed. But Richard's he's a great guy, and we get along really well. So it was all just in good fun. Um, but yeah, it was a funny moment for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, as we all can imagine, right? Like those, we're watching it, which means someone had to have a camera because clearly
Yeah.
the people who are in it are acting. They're not holding it. This isn't Pornhub, so like it's it's something I think everybody kind of thinks about at some point or another, where you're like, yeah, well, someone had to watch. Like you are forced into an intimate situation. Well, not forced, like you're all choosing to be there, but you're forced into having the most intimate situation between two people shared. And I mean, it's yeah,
Yeah, there's a
it's
different
a
energy for sure. I mean, there's no way around
totally. I
it.
would
I mean, it's
imagine.
like you walk, people are, and usually there's different, I guess you could say, technology involved in like keeping people modest, whether it's like a weird skinny little thing that covers your nether regions, or pasties for women. Often
Yeah,
that's a thing. So um, it's whatever makes people comfortable. And this wasn't like a hardcore nude scene or anything. Like, she's got a blanket wrapped around her chest, so it's like it's not like the most awkward thing in the world. But
yeah. And that's the care and consideration that takes place, because if it's not, then it's the wrong. You're making the wrong
well, yeah, I
mistake.
mean, exactly. If they're not comfortable, then I'm not comfortable either. So it's a mutual thing, and it was fine.
Totally.
But yeah, I think we all. The one downside really for me, probably more than them, was that that stupid house was like 40 degrees Celsius and
Fuck.
and like so humid because we had wrapped the entire house in black fabric and then it rained
Oh
and it
God.
evaporated all the water off of the black fabric into the house. This is like mid-July. So it's like 30 something degrees outside. And so in this stupid house that has no air conditioning, I have this hot, boiling hot camera like crammed next to my head. Uh, so being fully closed was actually like a downside.
You'd created a sauna.
Yeah,
You'd
oh,
created
100%.
a.
I absolutely lost a ton of weight because of that.
You just gotta give me one sec. I just gotta stand up because I've set a daily alarm to get into a habit on something, and that alarm is going off right now, and it's the Avengers theme song. So
Yes, copyright.
exactly. Just give me a sec. I'm totally covered in wire.
No.
Oh, yeah, it's still going.
Don't worry, folks. We'll be back shortly after this brief message from your sponsors. This episode is brought to you by
Instead of the ass.
Jello.
movie that's
I
from.
was just doing a brief message from our sponsors, so we're good. We're back.
Don't tell me. Let me wait. I'll find it in the edit. So we talked about this before, and I wanted to bring it up again. And I think I'd related it to Euro Dreams of Sushi and the hierarchy of the steps that one takes to get to the point where they're a cinematographer, like where you start and where you end. So for people out there who are like, hey, what position do you start in? What's the trajectory of this? How does one go through the motions?
Yeah, so there's two kind of paths or ways of thinking about it in the industry, I think. Specifically in Winnipeg. I mean, I'm sure there's many different routes you can take, but oftentimes, I guess I'll talk about the route that I took is more so just like the get out and do stuff route, which is, tell people that you're interested in filming and just go and film as much as you can. Whether at the beginning you probably won't get necessarily paid that well to do so. But that's the idea, right? Is you just get out there and film, and then I think when people start to see you around more and they start to take you a little bit more seriously, then you get asked to do different jobs. And so the way that the camera department is kind of broken up is there's usually the camera trainee is the way you would start on a big set, and then there's the second camera assistant, the first camera assistant, the camera operator, and then the director of photography or a cinematographer.
Sorry,
and so
one more time.
What's that?
Just kidding. Sorry, one more time, but I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, I started as a trainee myself on a union show, and it was called Mother's Day. It was shot on 35 millimeter film. It's by the same director as Saw 2 and 3.
Oh.
I didn't do a ton of days on it, but I was kind of filling in and helped out in as a camera trainee, and it was a great experience. I mean, I learned a lot of stuff. I got to kind of get a window into the union world, and that world is very different than the non-union world. So it just depends on which path you kind of gravitate towards. But I think everyone should try to work on set, on the big sets, on the union stuff, and to do so, you need to go through. I think Film Training Manitoba is the best way to go. They have like a training program that you have to take a couple classes, like basic like WMIS stuff and like set etiquette that just makes sure that you're aware of like what not
Your
to do on a film set,
surroundings.
basically. Don't go up to Samuel Jackson and be like, "Hey, Sam, what's going on, man?" Like that's, maybe don't do that.
It's don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you want to. It's okay to want to. But
Yeah,
don't
you can
do
think
it.
about doing it, but
Yeah.
maybe just don't do it unless like he comes up to you. I mean, like I was in line at lunch on set and on a movie that called Teen Lust that was shot here. It stars Carrie Elwes of all people,
Oh. Of Saw
aka
1.
Sorry.
Saw 1.
Saw
Or
One, yes, Saw
if
One,
you really
or
want to go
more
back,
famously, The Princess Bride,
Princess Bride.
obviously.
Yeah.
And he came up to me in the lunch line. He's like, "Hey, I'm Carrie."
Yep.
And so, like if that happens, by all means. I mean, ended up getting a signed copy of The Princess Bride. He signed it as you wish, which is like, it was like a dream come true. It was like, this is amazing, right? That he was such a great guy. So like, that's another perk, I guess, of going the union route, is that you'll interact with people like that. Like I've met quite a number of stars, I guess you could say. I had an opportunity to work with people, but so to kind of get back to the path of the camera department, so you'd start as a trainee and then eventually you would get into the union. So you're not, you do your days and you can get in as a second assistant. And a trainee just helps, obviously, everything else. They can slate, they can, grab lenses, clean lenses, help load the trucks, unload the trucks, and organize everything. You'll kind of get the ropes of how things are operating. And again, I'm not necessarily the best person to be telling you this because I didn't go through this path very much. But then you go into being a second camera assistant, and that's much more logistics. You're in charge of all of the camera reports, all of the timesheets, for the whole department. And you kind of run the department in a lot of ways from the background. There's a lot of paperwork involved and long hours. Like you're usually the last person to leave the department, and camera ends up, being there till the bitter end, just because they're, got to pack everything up. So it's a thankless job for sure. It's a very challenging job that's very organizational in nature, and very challenging, I think. I wasn't cut out for being a second camera assistant. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of avoided that route. Um, but from that point, you then work your way up to becoming a first camera assistant, which is probably one of the most stressful jobs on set. So in other words for them is focus puller. So what you're doing is you're making sure that the camera, the image that everyone is looking at, and that and with a, like literally 40, 50 people are staring at multiple monitors, and making sure that the people that are in focus, that are supposed to be in focus, stay in focus. And that means knowing distances, measuring things, setting marks. You're also you're in charge of the camera as well. I mean, you're not just pulling focus. You have many other duties, like, rigging the actual camera itself, building the camera, designing how all the pieces are going to fit together in a nice, clean, and useful manner, and ordering the equipment. Usually the first assistant is the one who actually gets in contact with the rental house, goes and preps the camera package, makes sure all of the parts are working, does the tests, make sure the lenses focus the right way, that they're actually collimated, set up to focus correctly. All of these like little intricate, technical details are handled by the first camera assistant. And even in non-union stuff, that's where I've done a lot of first camera assisting. I've pulled focus for a lot of commercials, and it's the same thing. Right, I'm in charge of the camera package. I go to the rental house, I set it up, I prep it often a day before, and then we pick it up the day of. And if anything's missing or if anything's not working, it's my fault, like 100%. Like, and then on the day, if anything's out of focus, like that's why when I mean, this isn't from personal experience, but from what I've heard, is if you get interviewed on a big movie as a focus puller, they often ask you, how many times have you been fired? Because if your answer is none, you don't have a lot of experience. And if your answer is 10, you're probably not a very good focus puller. So if your answer is like twice, yeah, you're hired, right? Like it's such a crazy job, right? Like they literally review the footage right after, it gets handed off to the digital image technician, who's another kind of a camera related department. You often they're in the camera department. They're the ones backing up all the data, and they're reviewing everything and often coloring the footage now on set. And they're looking, and if they see an image that's not in focus, they'll probably tell you first, but they're probably also going to tell someone else. And if that happens too often, sorry,
bye-bye,
you're going home. So I mean, that's to me, that's the most stressful job. I've done it a bunch. I'm okay at it. I'm certainly not at the level of certain. You can tell who the professionals are because they don't even look at a monitor. They measure out the distances. They know where the actors are going to be. They know where the camera's going to be, and they can judge by eye how far away that person is to within an inch. Literally.
This came up last time. I want this to be a game show. I want this. Like, this is one of those things where, like, your job, like, your trained eye, and that's really what this is, right? Is optics. It's perspective. Mm-hmm. You're presenting the best optics and perspective of a product to within 1 inch of accuracy of depth, and within hundreds of millions of dollars of accuracy in creation.
Yeah.
So like you just get this skill that, like, I feel you could really parlay on a game show.
Sure.
I mean,
and what doesn't translate any other way, right?
Yeah. But like it doesn't it totally doesn't transfer the other way. It doesn't make you a great cinematographer, but it makes you like can you imagine, like, you guys could sight anything? You could be like, that's a mile, right? Like the crazy ones.
Oh, probably, yeah. I don't know about a mile, but they're I think it's better at smaller distances. That's 25 foot 2 inches. Like
still 25 foot 2 inches to call that, and then be right at like 25 and an inch. you can walk around and be like, "Fuck you all." I just did that.
Pretty
Like that's
much.
a
Yeah. I mean, it's a skill. I mean, 100% it's a skill. And I have a huge respect for the people who do that job like day in, day out. Cause I mean, now, granted, nowadays there's like newer technology that can help you a lot. Like there's multiple things and it just keeps getting better and better. I mean, there's literally something called Light Ranger that you'll see on most big movie sets now. That it's a big old box that goes on top of the camera. It used to be two little cones that you would see called a cinetape, and it would send a sonar signal, and that would give you the distance of whatever's in front of that. But if the person's off center or if they're there's someone walking by and stuff, it can get weird readings. This new one is like I believe it's lasers, like LiDAR type style, and it basically just sends out a pattern of lasers, and it can tell you distances, across the entire screen. So you have a monitor now that has these like squares on it that will tell you which part of it is in focus and give you can actually change which square you're kind of focused on, and it'll tell you the distance of that object. Like it's much more useful. There's also something called a focus bug, which you can actually plant on an actor themselves and then calculate the offset distance from that piece of equipment to their eye. And then it will tell you the distance that is away from your camera at all times. So nowadays, these are very recent developments in the past year, I'd say even. It's been getting easier and easier, but it's still super technical and challenging and stressful.
Yeah, I mean, these are tools, right? They don't do the job for you. It's not like you could go out, like if you had money, you still wouldn't be good at this just because you could afford it. It just means that you could afford shit that's just a bunch of paperweights now.
And it's also very expensive. And I'm not gonna like those. How much would each of those systems are probably like? I don't know how much the Light Ranger is, but the focus bug thing's like at least $6,000, like for sure.
Wow. So yeah, that's not something you can just unless you're
full time working. No one's gonna buy that. No, for sure.
No. Totally.
And so then you move up from first assistant to a camera operator, which I mean, you can imagine what that person does. Basically, they're the camera operator. They show up and they got to do all the fancy moves and things. Like I think I talked about it last time. One of the most challenging, is you just have to be really good at guessing what humans are going to be doing next. You have to be, you have to almost be like body language and just like pace of people, and you have to be able to almost be omniscient in terms of like how they're going to move, how quickly they're going to move, which direction they're going to move. And yes, there's blocking, so you get a sense of things and how things might go. But once you call action, things are inevitably going to change, and you got to be able to react and respond to that in a beautiful and well composed manner. So one of the most challenging things that seems simple is like someone standing up from a seated position. Little things like that can be tricky to do with, on a really tight lens, for example, on a 100 mil lens. If someone's sitting up and standing down a bunch, you're going to have a rough day as a camera operator. Just because, yeah.
The predicting move things is interesting. I would imagine that after a while, being a camera operator, looking through the lens as much as you're looking through it distorts, like how we were talking earlier about how it could possibly distort how you look at things. And then now you're looking at humans do human things. So you're using your tool at the same time. And like, that's like the camera operator. I mean, all the Instagram accounts that I follow that are camera operator and cinematography based, just a study to talk to you.
No, of course.
Of course. There's some weird fucking positions, man. Like they get perched, and like, I mean, you were talking about, Basement Brad, but I mean, that's awkward. That's not weird, right? Like that's just an awkward thing to be in because it's an intimate thing. But like hang off this thing with a some sort of shitty lifeline and like move with objects at the same time. Like you're almost like Spider-Man. I get why I was a photographer now. It makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like my body's like super messed up just because, I'm constantly being not told or asked even, but like being put in situations where I need to contort in the oddest ways with weight, terrible weight distribution. Like that's why massage therapy is so critical for me as a career path, because like literally I was just on the roof of the MTC building like 2 days ago. At 7 a.m. It's covered in ice, and I'm filming a guy playing guitar as the sun comes up. Like, and I've got my insane gimbal contraption, strapped to my body, and I'm literally doing squats. Like I'm literally like lowering the camera and then raising the camera up, all with my like knees and hips.
Oh.
And it's at 7 a.m. on the icy roof of the MTC building. So it's like, those are the types of situations you can find yourself in. And I mean, physically it's very demanding, and I constantly wish I was in better shape.
Yeah, I mean, you're as you said, you're contorting. You're like a gold medal steroid induced Russian gymnast by the sound of it. Like,
Yeah, at times, yeah.
yeah,
Or like,
I mean,
one of my
that's how
favorite
life
stories,
is
and
filmed.
I think you should post it in the show notes. It's that good. Because a good friend of mine, his name's Serge Desrosiers, and he's an old school camera op from Montreal. He has this insane moment where he's strapped, literally tethered in to a harness with a rope, and he's got a big old film camera on his shoulder, and he's shooting a scene where a car is supposed to be hitting the person. It's like a POV shot. So this car drives right up to him, and like gets just like slams on the brakes right in front of his camera, and then this crane pulls him like 30-40 feet up in the air with nothing except this like vest and a rope, and he's hand holding the camera.
I want that. I want that image.
It's worth watching a few times. So
that's crazy.
So that's the kind of situation that a camera operator can be put in.
Like, you're bonded, I'm hoping. Like that's
yeah, at that point.
Jesus. Do you, like, because you scout, right? So you have an idea, but then does that idea come the day you scout it? You're like, oh yeah, we're gonna need the bungee cord out here, guys.
No, that kind of
call
situation would be well before. I mean, even when we scouted the rooftop thing, we're like, okay, can you shovel and like salt the roof because it's all icy? And they did, but it didn't. It was still icy as shit. Like it didn't really solve the problem. I'm sure for the him being thrown up, and I'm sure that was like weeks of planning, because like it's insane. Like I can't imagine rigging that and like making sure it's safe-ish.
Yeah, no, I mean, workplace health and safety is there for a reason, and it seems the movie industry is
they don't give a shit. Yeah.
Fuck. So there's some stuff I'm gonna leave out because I've realized, as we've talked again, like the when you guys are done doing the return and we can all sit down and have a conversation about it, which I'm looking very forward to. The only reason we haven't done it is because you're touring with it. So let the people see it as much as they fucking possibly can before you tank it on my show. That being said, though, who inspires you? Like, what cinematographers out there? I mean, and obviously, I mean, everybody knows Mr. Deakins, right? That's obviously that's a given. But like, who are some of the ones that people don't know about or should know about, or that you inspire you from what movies you've seen and we've seen, maybe?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's so many amazing cinematographers. I've been kind of like trying.
Just for everybody who should know, Mr. Deakins is Roger Deakins.
Roger Deakins, yes. The man himself. Yeah, I mean, he has. I mean, not to flaunt another podcast, but he has an excellent podcast.
Yeah, no, I've listened to a couple episodes. Yeah, he's like Morgan Freeman. It's nice to listen to him talk.
He's basically like, he's kind of like our Jesus.
the chosen one. Okay, he's been
a little, that's what it fees like at times. I mean, Chivo, obviously, like the guy who shoots, like The Revenant and what is it, like Gravity?
Gravity.
Yeah, like, I mean, he's insane, just absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's a good cinematographer to like call out. Man, it's like escaping. I'm bad at remembering names off the top of my
I
head.
know we had this problem before. The other three guys were here. We'd figured this out already, but actually, maybe we wouldn't. I don't know how much we would. Yeah, that's a stretch. I shouldn't give us that much credit. Either way, like what are some scenes maybe that have like inspired you, where you look and you're like, that's fuck yeah,
I mean,
right? Like
like,
I
yeah, another. Let me see, let me just really quickly
yeah
Google
yeah.
something.
Brought to you by the newest keyboard.
Yes, sorry, I'm sure it's really loud and annoying.
No, it's fine, dude. I was
Uh,
sitting here making noises. It's called talking. I don't fucking. We don't care about stuff like that. We
um,
used to. We used to give a shit about. Well, shh, in the background. Shh, no, no.
God,
People
stop
cannot
it.
hear life happening.
Yeah, so sorry, I
No,
misspoke.
no,
It's
no.
Emmanuel Lubezki, obviously, is the guy who does, everything, like Children of Man, Revenant, Birdman, Gravity, fucking
Oh, okay. I'm
Tree of
thinking of
Tree of
what's the
Life.
Tree of Life? That's Terrence Malick, right?
Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
he's done it. He does everything, right? So it's just like it's such a no brainer choice because his stuff is just insane on another level. But yeah, in terms of like, I don't know, people you should follow. Depends what you are interested. Like so Benjamin Loeb is the guy who shot Mandy. He just did a talk recently for for Winnipeg people. It was really interesting. Um, I thought his stuff was really cool. He's technically from Norway, but went to school in Canada,
Okay.
which is kind of cool. He's got a unique style for sure. Um, Pavel Porogowski. I'm sure I'm butchering that name. He shot Hereditary and
Oh.
Midsommar, and he recently shot a movie in Winnipeg called Nobody. Um,
Oh.
yeah, with what's his face from Better Call Saul, Bob Odenkirk.
Oh. Bob Odenkirk and Christopher Lloyd.
Hmm. So yeah, I mean that he's got a really interesting eye. I think, like, obviously Hereditary is a beautiful movie, as is Midsommar in different ways. I think, which is really cool because they have such different looks to them.
Midsommar has a very fantasy kind of fairy tale aspect to it, being
Absolutely,
the small village and out in the countryside and whatnot. But it has that fantasy element that is hard to explain. And Hereditary is Heredity, right?
Hereditary,
Hereditary is like a panic attack on screen. Like
totally. Yeah, yeah.
as I was
Like,
so
why am I doing this
not.
myself?
Yeah, no. Why am I raising my blood pressure? This makes zero sense. Zero sum game here.
And then I had the option. I had the opportunity to work with Tom Stern,
Okay.
who
Yes.
is unbelievable. He shot. I mean, he was the gaffer on the Goonies, of all things. He shot like most of Clint Eastwood's movies from, I think, from what is the name of that one? Letters
Now,
from Iwo Jima. He did.
Flags of Our Fathers,
Yeah, and the one just before that, which is
Gran Torino.
Gran Torino. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, he did Gran Torino as well. So like, I mean, he's basically Eastwood's cinematographer, and he came to Winnipeg to shoot Ice Road with Liam Neeson,
Yes.
and I got to work with him very, very closely. I got to shoot several music videos with him. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I like people. It's just crazy how small of a world it can be in film. Like, it's such like a family oriented thing. So I don't know. You kind of pull from any imagery that you. I love to. There's a great website called Film Grab. Film-grab.com. And it's you can search by artists. You can search by movie title. You can search, by all different types of like genres and things, and it basically just pulls up stills from films, and so you can search by color, you can search by,
Really?
yeah, you can search by anamorphic, you can search by time of day, you can search by all types of different things, and so
Wow.
if you
Wow.
are
Wow.
interested
Wow.
in visuals, it's such a great tool, um, because it's just like if you find an image that you identify with, I think and that you should attempt to recreate it. Like I mean, it's like anything else, right? You steal, beg, borrow, you steal, and that's how you create your style, right? You take that, in so doing, it's going to be slightly different, and it'll teach you, maybe how you might approach it when you're doing it for real. So find imagery that speaks to you, and then steal it. That's my advice.
And just credit where credit's due, right? Like, I was inspired by.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's all. I mean, like, yeah, my movie The Return is inspired by The Conjuring. Absolutely. Like we use that as a reference.
But imitation is the highest form of flattery. Is that?
Well, it's like like, what is it? The best artists. I don't know. I can't remember the quote, but
yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, the best artists steal from the greats or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. I'm gonna save some stuff for the return, literally.
Yeah.
Of both DJ and you. So now that's very fitting. And I've taken up enough of your time, so thank you for that. But I do, as we did before, and I think the Thomas Stern story is what started it last time. So maybe you can elaborate on it, but. This whole thing is about showcasing Winnipeg filmmakers. I do have efforts to branch this out. I'm starting with who's paying attention to us, which is home. So I want to exhaust Manitoba. I want every Manitoba film professional to be like, yeah, I know that idiot. And I did a show. But why? What is it? Because for people, we have a huge following in San Jose. Surprisingly, I wouldn't say huge. Huge is probably a big stretch, but there's like 200 some odd downloads coming out of, and for a small podcast, I'm like, someone's paying attention. It's not a bot. That's not. I'm sure there's bots, but that's not that. San Jose is not a bot. Anyways, and so people who are listening in places like California who have a fucking huge industry, like, it's been crippled there, obviously, but who might not know that this place called Winnipeg in Manitoba is a fucking film hub in Canada. What is so great about working in it and being in the Manitoba film industry?
Well, I mean, obviously the draw here for large films and large productions is the tax credit. I mean, let's not lie and say that it's only the talent and skills and the location. I mean, we have a lot to offer in terms of those things, but the tax credit is such a huge boon for this community. I mean, you get 65% of your labor costs back in tax credit if you shoot a movie here. And as an American, that's like, because we're talking Canadian dollars, so your money's just going to be, it's going to go so much farther, right? Like, so it's I understand that, like, that's what really drives the industry, and it creates these insane opportunities where, big movies, like Liam Neeson with Ice Road, Jonathan Hensley was the director who wrote, he wrote Armageddon and Jumanji and like these, and The Rock, like insane, like all of those three movies are insane. Like, like maybe not Armageddon, whatever, but like Jumanji and The Rock, like that's some goddamn solid filmmaking right there.
Yeah, no, Jumanji specifically. Like The Rock is.
I love The Rock. I think it's a fucking amazing movie.
I will firmly. The Rock and Con Air are easily two of my favorite Nicolas Cage action movies.
Right?
I'm sure a lot of like that and Face Off. There's your three.
Sure. There you go.
But what does Sean Connery say? He says some losers. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen, right? Like that one.
And that's the guy who wrote that line. Like, he was here in Winnipeg. Like that's the kind awesome. Of people that come here because we have, this industry that we've fostered. I mean, it also, when I was getting into the industry, it was just kind of, there was a bit of a lull. Like I think we did Shall We Dance?
Yeah, there was that. It was starting.
There was like a Brad Pitt movie. Something in the Falls.
Fucking the Jesse James shot by.
Well, that was that's a big one. That I was talking about. There's a shitty Brad Pitt movie before that, but
really,
Tales from the Fall, or like something from the Falls. I don't know. Anyway, it's not. I don't think it.
A river runs through it.
No. Anyway,
was it with Anthony Hopkins?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I wasn't in the
black. I wasn't in the business at the time.
Was it Toontown where he
God
was
damn it.
animated?
Now I have to Google it. Now you're
It was
making
Thelma and Louise, wasn't it? It was the cliff scene. They shot it in Manitoba. They shot it out in the pits out Carpin Road.
Legend of the Falls. See,
Legend of the Fall was filmed here?
Yeah, I'm 90% sure.
Get the fuck out.
Pretty sure. Or at least part of it was.
That's Anthony Hopkins, though, is it not? I swear it's Anthony Hopkins.
You were correct, sir. It is Anthony
Thank you.
Hopkins. Yeah.
That's a point. That's a fucking point.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, like, you know, we had a few. We had that K-19, The Widowmaker with Harrison Ford.
Gimli. Yeah.
So, like, there's movies that were coming here and stuff, but and it's just been getting more frequent, bigger and bigger, and we've, you know, we used to only have really like one or two crews. Now we for sure, I'd say, can easily crew like 3 full movies at least. And if you consider our like non-union or like kind of side stuff, I'd say like 5 or 6 projects, maybe as many as 8 projects are going at once sometimes, you know, like, so
yeah, no, it's
busy.
You don't discount yourself, dude. Yeah, I mean, like the tax credit, yes, you can't pretend it doesn't exist, but I mean, eventually talented crew and talented individuals have to be there. Otherwise, it's like, man, we got a break on this budget, but fuck, we're never going back there. We learned our lesson.
I mean, clearly people that come here, I mean, I know for a fact that like the creator of Chucky, who directs the Chucky films, whose name escapes me off the top of my head. Terrible at names.
If Jimmy was here, we would have it already. I know the name. He said it to me like 7 times. I should know.
Mancini.
It's on the tip of my tongue. Yes, that's on the whole tip of my tongue.
Yeah. He's done Don Mancini. He's done a bunch of films here, and I know he loves it here. Like, he keeps coming back because not only is it a good value, but he likes the crews here. He has fun making movies here, and it seems to be kind of a running, you know, story from what I'm hearing. I'm often not on those big movies, so it's not a, you know, a direct quote from myself, but
yeah,
I mean, the fact that people keep coming and that, you know, it seems like things are getting bigger and bigger, you know, and more prominent people are coming, and they don't seem to hate it, other than Rob Lowe.
What did he say? It was fucking just cold as.
What did he call it? Hellhole.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
And then my buddy who works in the art department came to a set with like a lovely script-based T-shirt that you couldn't really tell, but it says Hellhole. when he was still around. You gotta talk to him. He's a character.
That would be the trip. I would love to hear that story.
So for the most part, we get pretty good reviews, and like everything that I've, you know, all the people that I've had the pleasure of working with have been great. Like, I have a lot of fun working, whether it's the big movies or the you know, the non-union stuff, whether it's docs or feature films. Like, it's just a fun community. It's a family. I mean, I think I know every single person in the film industry in Winnipeg, or if not, you know, I've at least crossed paths with them if I don't know them on a first name basis. So it's just like, it's such a small community. And it's great. I mean, we foster each other's growth, and we help each other out. I mean, I'll go out and help shoot friends of mine's projects. You know, I just shot a short film the other day it's made by Jeremy Milmine, who's an electric in the union, who's been doing it for years and years. He's way more experienced than I am, but he was directing a short and he got me to shoot it. And, you know, it was a blast. He brought all his buds out from the union stuff, and like, you know, I get to interact with them and hang out and make a movie. And we did another elaborate oneer. We dug a 6-foot grave from nothing to 6 feet deep in a one take shot.
That's okay. So, a day job crossover here. I have Jeremy's email. We talk a lot.
Of course.
He's a lovely human being. I've approached him about being in your seat, and I've been following that, like his GoFundMe stuff, and trying to get it going and off the ground. And I think I saw some of the tombstones that were. Oh, hang on here. Somehow my fucking laptop isn't plugged in. I don't want to lose all this shit. Hang on one second. We're not doing this again, Brad. We're not fucking doing this again.
It's just
let
gonna
them
be
know
my
who-
audio. It's not gonna be yours.
let them know who the sponsor is, will you?
Yeah, okay. Once again, this episode has been brought to you by Stay Puft Marshmallows. For when you really want to ravage your downtown with puffy goodness, keep it Stay Puft. And in other news, things are going pretty good here in Winnipeg. The weather's lovely, and the sun's shining.
Success.
The laptop's
Damn
plugged
near the
in.
ass this time.
Thanks for tuning in.
What'd you tell him?
Oh, you'll see.
Okay. I like this version better than last version.
It's not. It's not great. It's not profound or earth shattering
No.
in any way.
No, but it's you. That's all I care about.
Amazing.
Anyway, so community in Winnipeg and being able to be not being too big so that nobody knows each other and everybody's in competition, being
Yeah,
not
like
too small
when I
that
get
it's
the
not
call from
viable.
someone like Jeremy and he sends me the idea, and then I see all the people involved. It's just all people that I want to hang out with for the evening. It was a cold, windy, kind of early winter evening, and we're getting our asses kicked. But I think it was like the 90-kilometer wind day. Remember that day?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Kansas.
But
We're not here
I got
anymore,
to
honey.
hang out, and we got to do some elaborate stuff. I'll let him tell you the stories when he's on, but stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, no, and that's what I was meaning about earlier. Like, I know him as an electric, but he's making his own film, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the I think that's a cool thing, right? Where you can like jump from do this, but then you're on set and you're watching it all happen, right? So then I can't help imagine that you'd be somewhat interested, at least knowing how a lot of the moving parts work, right? You can't just be like, well, this is all I want to do on a movie set. It's like, well, you're shortchanging yourself, I guess, in my opinion.
I
But
think a
that's from
lot
an
of
outsider.
people, I think you mentioned it earlier, is that like people get into this industry because they want to make movies. They want to be filmmakers. And regardless of where that takes them as a career, and as we get older, I think we are concerned more about our career versus when you're starting out, you're just like eager to make something or be involved. Now it's like, okay, I do need to make a living doing this because that's what I've decided to do for the, better or worse. But yeah, at the heart of it, we're filmmakers. So.
And that's your second poll quote. Done. Oh, dude, thank you for doing this again. I really appreciate it. I appreciate recycling the same thing. I wanted to save some stuff. Some other stuff's come up. So
yeah.
like I've been reiterating this whole episode, I'm really excited to put the two of you in the same room and have a really good chat about Strata and how you guys kind of came to be.
Yeah, we've got lots of stories. I haven't touched upon anything that me and Beej have really done together because we traveled all of Canada together, making stuff. So
I'm saving that gold for a TBD 2021.
Copy that. In person, I hope.
What was that?
In person, I hope.
Oh, and yeah, no, I hope so too. I mean, I'm learning stuff, right? Like I'm sure you're learning stuff, how to do this, how to do your thing in a different way, and I've figured out a couple tricks along the way here. Hopefully, make us sound better, look better, talk better, whatever. But I mean, you can't say like you can't. How do I want to say this? If a species isn't challenged, then it gets lazy. So
no, absolutely.
So I'm not saying COVID's a great thing, but it's challenged people in a lot of different ways, and you don't grow unless you're challenged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
shitty way
100%.
to have to.
And you should strive to challenge yourself all the time. I mean, that's it. Especially in this kind of career path. I mean, you're gonna fall behind so quickly if you don't constantly look to improve and adapt.
Which the first question I'm going to ask you next time is we're going to talk about digital versus film. We're going to talk about my question I asked: why do American films look American and Canadian films look
Ah, yes, the one that we didn't go over this time. God damn it.
Which, having since talked to you, I'll save that. We'll save that for next time. But having since talked to you, I'd seen a Canadian movie. I'd seen a movie, and I was like, "Man, that's a good movie." And I was like, "That was made in Canada." And then you popped in my head because you were like, "It's about budget. If you've got a lot of money, you can do a lot of things. It really is just about having time and endless amounts of money to get it really, really, really good. Like there's a relationship there between
100%.
budget.
Yeah. Well, for sure. And also, yeah, because money equals time as well, right? Like,
yeah.
and if you have the time to make a movie, like, if you look at Sean Garrity's film that we shot, we shot that over 20 days, but over like 3 months, like, because he's on the shoestring budgets. And so we're just piecemealing a movie together as we go.
Which looks amazing, which is out now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's you. That's you filming a lovely romantic comedy.
It was fun. I had a blast on that film. It's very different than anything else I've worked on, but it was so much fun to make.
That's a movie that I wanted. I heard Sean's name. I was like, let's do this. Let's talk to people. And went and saw it. Hadn't seen, and I went and saw that first. Then I watched him backwards instead of watching him from oldest to newest. So I was like, wow, this is really good. And then I was like, I walked in everything else and was like, wow, this is really fun and awkward and weird and kooky. And but yeah, I propose we never see each other again after tonight. Now streaming on video on demand.
There you go. Check it out.
On Amazon Prime too, right?
I think it's on a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure all the platforms, but it's out there. You can find it.
Can you give me that shot that people can see? Your
pattern shot.
The pattern, yeah.
Yeah, I'll find a way.
Find a way. We'll find a way. Might not be tomorrow, but life will find a way. Dr. Ian Malcolm. That's perfect.
Life will find a way.
Find a way. Dude, like I said, thank you again for coming on the show.
Yeah, man. Pleasure.
Next time we will move forward like 1917. We won't go forwards and backwards and forwards again.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And
anytime at all.
Oh well, now that we've done this, we can plan for a really ridiculous, stupid rendition of one of our debates, and get you and BJ on.
I would love to. I'd love to just go ham on something.
Oh well, we're actually writing right now. We're finishing the year in honor of Manitoba. Make your own Hallmark.
Oh, one of my favorite podcasts often does they read 3 different like titles and taglines, and you have to guess which one's the not the Hallmark movie. They make one up, and then 2 of them are real. Oh man,
that's awesome.
So
that's
funny.
really, send me that. As for the show, as for my responsibilities, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to another Reel Debaters production. If you want to follow the show and you're a first timer, the reeldebaters.ca. That's where you can find all things us, cast bios, how to listen to the show, merch stand, and a pending blog that we're still working on. So many ideas, just not enough hours in the fucking day. If you want to follow us on social media, it is at Reel Debaters. All the spelling of how we how we etch our name in history is REEL Debaters, because that's cheeky, as I've said in the past. That's it. That's the show. I've been Micheal Petrow. My guest has been
Brad Crawford.
And we
are out of here.